Thanks, Erica. Hi, I'm Lindsay. I am the author of Chicago Transit Hikes, A Guide to Getting Out in Nature Without a Car. Welcome to Chicago Transit Hikes presentation for getting out in nature without a car. I am very grateful that you came. I am a writer, editor, nonprofiteer, knitter, backpacker, and primarily a Midwestern adventure seeker. I grew up in central Illinois on 100 acres of pristine second growth forest. And these days I blog over on Third Coast Hikes, thirdcoasthikes.com, basically about all the outdoorsy stuff I see here. I cast a wide net. In 2006, I moved to Chicago, so I lived for a good decade in Logan Square, which put me really close to the boulevards, Palmer Square, and the 606. So it was actually super easy to feel like I was connected to nature, even though I was living in this really dense urban neighborhood. Later, I moved to Jefferson Park. So now I'm up here near Ted Woods and the North Branch Trail. And when I moved, it was like, okay, well, I have to figure it out again. Where we have backyards here, and no boulevards. How can I find nature? So yeah, that's where I started. I drive a really cool car. I wouldn't want to lie to you and say I don't have one, but I do. I drive a cool car, and I never want to buy another one for as long as this one can run. It's a sweet 1994 Ford Thunderbird. It's got a V8 engine. It's hella cool to drive. It's been paid off since I bought it like 13 years ago. So technically it's an antique. The carbon footprint makes some sense here because if I just drive it until it dies, that's good, right? Don't tell me it's not. Basically, I would much rather take public transit or bike than find parking for that car because it's 17 feet long, and transit and my bike are just better ways to get around. I like them a lot more. So this is the frame of mind I was when I put together Chicago Transit Hikes. So I just moved to a new neighborhood. I wanted to explore all of the green spaces that I could get to using just from my new spot. And the cool thing about being in Jefferson Park is that I'm actually in a really transit-rich place. I have the blue line within walking distance and 2 different Metra lines. So I thought to myself, where can I go on the train? I spent a lot of time staring at maps, a lot. And I just kind of determined where the green spaces exist around Chicagoland and where are they in relation to our transit system, and just kind of put it all together from there. I just repeated that process for every train line that I could find. And when I was done, I had a first draft. So then during the writing of the second draft, I visited as many of them as I could. It was a lot of fun hiking all winter. It happened in winter. That's too bad for me. So when I got to there, when I got to the end of the first draft, what was it that I used to determine whether or not a spot qualified for basically a spot in the book? So what was I thinking? Was this place actually accessible from the train? So there are some places where the walk to the trailhead may have been entirely too far, or if it was not safe to do it on foot, I did not include that place. Because I had to draw a line somewhere, and Chicago has so many trains, I just left the bus out of it. If you're a big fan of the bus, you go do that research. Let me know. I'm very excited to hear what you find. But the bus did not make it into this book. So there's probably just tons more places that I did not even think of because I did not look at the bus. And then the last thing I considered was, is this spot worth it? So if the park was too small or more of like a little neighborhood play space, I just left it out. It's not worth it. That's something else. So for whatever reason, Chicagoland doesn't necessarily have a reputation for having an abundant green spaces, but there's really no reason for that because I kept running into abundant, beautiful green spaces just about everywhere I looked. In the book itself, there are about 30 hikes, and it's really just because that was all I could fit in the book. About 30 different hikes, 30 different locations. There was at least another dozen that I could not include simply because I ran out of space in the book, and at least another dozen that kind of would have worked, but didn't got cut for various other criteria. Like I couldn't, find a way for you to walk there safely. So what you need to take away from here is, if anybody has told you that Chicagoland is too flat to be boring, flat, whatever. No. There's far more green space than I could fit in an entire guidebook. So there you go. How much nature did I run into? A ton. All of these photos that you see are in Chicagoland. These are all transit hikes photos too. And that was a beautiful fall day. There's a diversity of landscapes around here. It's not just flat. There are rivers, bluffs, lakes, fens, swamps, dunes, beaches, bogs, prairies, forests, dozens of historical sites, and I found one natural waterfall. We have one, you guys. But there's something for everyone, regardless of their age, mobility concerns, or outdoorsiness. Everybody you know around here, I have found a spot that they will enjoy connecting with nature, no matter who they are. I found 6 campgrounds that you can get to by the train. Six, guys. I found great big adventure hiking spots for great big adventure hikers. I consider myself one of those. I like to make hiking so big that it's not fun anymore. But I also found smaller, littler hiking spots for like simpler adventure seekers. Really, what I was thinking, who I was thinking of when I put this book together, was just to write as wide a book as I could for anybody. So if you are maybe new to hiking, maybe you don't have a long history. I grew up in the woods, so I feel very natural in that space. But maybe you're new. Okay. There's something in here for you. It's there. You will find something. You won't feel overwhelmed, I promise. What challenges did I find? I wish that the trains ran more frequently. I really do. That was the one thing. If the trains had run more frequently, I think they would be more useful. But that's Metra's historical focus, and Metra is the big transit system that I reference throughout the book because it's just our longest reaching transit system. But it's primarily focused on commuters, and that has kind of limited its utility, I think. And I think Metra is seeing this now, just in the last year or so. So hopefully that does change in the past, and they decide to focus their Metra schedule a little more on not just commuters, but getting people out in nature, getting them, make it straight up a recreational place. So that's what I'm hoping. There are some places that are just plain not accessible. Like if I cannot safely get you there, I did not put it in the book. A great example of this is the Morton Arboretum. I was really, really excited to include the Morton Arboretum. It's only about a half a mile away from the Lisle train station, maybe a mile. So it's super close. I was so excited. And then I went to map it out. And what did I find? But there is a good half-mile stretch where if you're where it's just a 4-lane highway. So I can't tell you to walk down the side of a 4-lane highway. That's not safe. So that's another challenge I found. If maybe Lisle had just built a little footbridge or a sidewalk, Morton Arboretum would be in the book. But I don't want to walk down the side of a 4-lane highway. If I don't want to do it, I'm not going to tell you to do it. And that rolls into my next point, where not every suburb or Chicago prioritizes pedestrian needs appropriately. Like, you've seen it. You probably, if you walk down the sidewalk this winter, you probably had to step over some snow because somebody didn't clear the sidewalk, or you've had to wait forever at a light just because you wanted to cross the street, but it was a 4-lane highway. So these are all things that make it a bit harder, but they're not challenges. So one, I'm going to call it it's a very quiet discrimination, but the richest, densest transit green space around here is the Palo system. I'm sure many of you have been there and seen it. There are 2 train lines that run on either side of the Palo system. So I was super, super excited to include the Palo system when I wrote the book, right? Like, there's going to be a ton there. There's a campground, there's 2 nature centers. It's going to be everything. Didn't work. You know why? The trains don't run. They were focused primarily on commuters at the time that I published the book, so which means you can get into the city at night and out of the city at the end of the day, but you can't take it to green space. And so you look at the neighborhoods and the demographics of those 2 train lines. Who lives in those neighborhoods? What do they look like? And also, if the people who live in those neighborhoods cannot access the largest concentration of green space, does that exist? If you have access but you can't get there, does it exist? So that bugs me. That bugs me a lot. And this could be completely solved if we just ran the trains often enough to be useful. If it's there but you can't get it, is it there? So there is a way to do that. I call it the Big Palos Adventure Camp. I outline it in the book. It's about 3 days. It's a really proper backpacking trip, I think, but it's very highly scheduled. And if somebody does it, please let me know, because I'm very curious and I want to know. So taking transit, not ideal, but we are making progress. Hopefully things will turn a turn a page as we move forward and re-enter society when everybody's vaccinated. Not good. So back to the fun stuff. What can you do when you get outside around here? Honestly, a lot. I'm not going to read this list to you because it's an incomplete list. Like there is no good reason why we shouldn't all be outside enjoying Chicago 4 months or 4 seasons out of the year. There's something to do. It's a beautiful place. Just all right. So get down to the nitty gritty. What should you bring when you're transit hiking? A backpack, carry all your stuff in it. A phone with a spare battery and charger is a good idea, just in case your phone dies and you don't know where you are. Maybe you're not sure when the train's coming. Bring an extra battery. You always want to drink water. You want to drink at least 1 liter of water for every 2 hours that you spend actively hiking. Hydration is very important. Bring a snack, camera. Your phone might work. You get a spare point for every piece of trash you pick up on the trail. So if you bring an extra plastic bag, there you go. As always, cotton kills, but I'm sure all sorts of you already know this. What not to bring? Try not to bring too much tech. You want to try and connect with nature. Do not bring any weapons. Handguns are prohibited by law in all parks in Illinois. You risk being banned from all Illinois parks. If you bring one, same with anything you would use to vandalize stuff. If you are caught vandalizing, they will ban you from all Illinois parks for a while. That's no good. Don't be like me. Don't carry a very, very heavy backpack. And in a bad attitude. Chicagoland has this most gorgeous, diverse landscape. We've got prairies, savannas, meadows, bluffs, moraines, dunes, swamps, wetlands, rivers, and lakes. So if somebody has told you that these things are boring or too flat to be interesting, leave that notion at home and you come with an open mind. When you go transit hiking, what are the best apps? What do you want to have on your phone? Honestly, all of these are really, really helpful. Google Maps, if you're not sure where you're going, especially if you're going to a new place or somewhere you're not familiar with, it's really helpful to just be like, hey, where am I? Am I in the right spot? Ventra, if you're not familiar with how to use our transit system, Ventra is the system that kind of connects all of our ticketing. You can manage your CTA, Metra, and PACE tickets there. PACE doesn't appear in the book, but there it is. The South Shore Line, it has its own app because it is not affiliated with Metra or CTA, which is like a bonkers thing that it's its own thing. But there it is, South Shore Line being rad. The Lake County Forest Preserves have a really cool app that includes maps for every single one of their parks. And Lake County has some really just tremendously gorgeous natural spaces. So if you're going anywhere in Lake County, that is a great way to keep a map in your pocket. And Seek, I use this one all the time, like just in my backyard even. So you download Seek, snap a picture of a plant or an animal or whatever it is that you find. I want to know what this plant is called. And an algorithm will spit out an answer at you. Probably. So if you're on the trail, you're like, hey, that's a cool leaf. What plant does that belong to? Or got a cool bird, something like that. Seek. These are the apps you want with you for successful transit hike. I'm not going to read this because it's lengthy. But if you ask me, where does Metra meet in Chicago? There isn't one answer. There are a bunch of transit hubs in Chicago. Millennium Station, Ogilvy, and Union Station are the big ones that you'll see with Metra, but there's also LaSalle Street. Millennium Station is the impetus for, that's where all of the South Shore Line trains come from. And you want to use the CTA. The CTA is its own thing. I hope the most of you already know how to use it. If not, throw a question in the chat. I'll be happy to give you a more specific answer. But there are about a bajillion places you can get to using the CTA to get out and enjoy nature. So just keep an eye out on that. Hopefully you know where you're going. If not, hopefully you've downloaded the right apps. So now we're getting to the nitty gritty. This is, I think, the big question that most Chicagoans are too afraid to ask. How do I use Metra? Don't worry. I also did not know how to use Metra once. It's our big suburban commuter train system. And it's big. It's big. You can take it all the way up to, I think, Milwaukee, as far south as, a little further south than Joliet, I think. You can get really far on Metras, but it operates a little differently than the CTA does. Cost is determined by distance. So if you're going a very, very long route, it will cost more than if you're only going 2 or 3 stops. The easiest way to use Metra is to buy tickets using the app. So you want to download the Metra app, purchase your tickets directly through the app, And you will then be able to redeem those same tickets using the app on your phone. It's all paperless. Be aware when you get to wherever you're going. Hopefully you've plugged in your directions into Google Maps, or you know where you're familiar where you're headed. But if you're not familiar with your local Metra station, I want to prepare you in advance that the signage might not be great. Just, I want to prepare you right now. The wayfinding in the Metra stations could be better. So the number one thing to do if you're not sure which track your train will arrive on, just ask. Everybody who is on Metra is familiar with this problem. Don't worry, just ask, and somebody will point you in the right direction. And it is better to ask a stranger and briefly embarrass yourself than to end up literally on the wrong side of the tracks when the train shows up. So be aware. I wish it was better. Metra has conductors, and they're great. When your train arrives, you should be aware that not every door will open. It's not like CTA, where every car door opens at every stop. Only certain car doors open at certain stops. When that door opens, the conductor will step out, go in the door that he just came in. The conductors are great. I love the conductors. The conductors are some of the best parts of Metra. They're very nice, they're very friendly, and their job is to keep the peace and make sure everyone behaves appropriately. They're also the guys who will take your ticket. So when you get onto the train, you get seated, they will come through the car and they will ask to see your phone. They'll ask to see your ticket. So you'll hold it up and they'll go boop, boop. There's a little video. They might ask you to tap it. That's just so they know you're showing them the app and not just a little video. So it's okay. It'll be really, really easy. They like the CTA, Metra does announce the upcoming stops, so you can keep a listen. Another way to do that, if you didn't catch that, again, open up Google Maps on your phone and just kind of watch your little train move. You'll know where you are. You'll know what your stop is coming up. For me, it's better to be prepared and pay too much attention. If you are on the Metra during rush hours, you may see something called a quiet car. I love the quiet car because it's exactly what it sounds like. It is a place where everybody agrees to be quiet. So if you're in a quiet car or you see a sign with a little shushing woman, that's the quiet car. Just keep things quiet there. You got people on their way to or from work. They are grumpy. Leave them be. If you're there on the weekends or in the middle of the day, you might encounter the family car, which is pretty much the opposite of the quiet car. It has a place. Alcohol is allowed on Metra, but you have to behave yourself or they will kick you out. You can bring a bike and an e-scooter. You absolutely should, actually. I'm a big fan of bringing my bike on Metra. I think that that really expands your hiking opportunities if you bring a bike on Metra. But you have to be very careful about how you secure it. Most of the Metra cars where you park your bike were not designed for that purpose, simply at all. So you end up kind of leaning your bike against what is technically the ADA seating. So it's important to note that if a person who needs the ADA seating comes in, all of the bikes will be kicked off. So just keep that in mind. I've never seen it happen, but for that reason, they can't guarantee any bikes a place on the train. Keep it in mind. And the other important thing is to bring a bungee cord, because they want you to be able to secure your bike to the train so that during the ride, it doesn't fall over or block the path. And the conductors are serious about that. Like, for real, they're serious. I have seen them, I've seen them stand there and make somebody, what did they do? I've seen people use their helmets to secure their bike when they didn't have a bungee cord. I saw a conductor make a guy use the belt from his pants once. He was standing there going, I don't have anything. The conductor wouldn't let him walk away. You have to secure your bike. So there it was. So bring a bungee cord, keep your belt on your pants. That one's really important. You can bring your pet, you can bring your dog or your cat, but they need to be able to fit in a carrier and fit under the seat or under your lap. So if you have a very small dog, my dog, I think, is a bit too spazzy. I don't think it'll work. In terms of what you can bring on the train, basically, if you can carry it without help, you can bring it. That's it. That's pretty much the rule. There is no checked baggage. There is limited storage. So that's the rule. If you can carry it without assistance, there. And another thing about the last thing about using Metra that I want to touch on is that it's a good idea to get there a little early. The train schedule might say it's scheduled to come at 6:10. Okay, super duper. 609 rolls up, you may see it rolling away. Then you've missed your train. Why did that happen? Because it's just such a big commuter transit system. It's just that. It's just so dang big that they don't run the trains nearly as often, for one. With the CTA, the average peak transit time, you might see a train every 10 minutes. Peak transit time on Metra, it still might be about an hour. That might be once an hour. That's the most you're going to see. So if you don't want to wait another hour for that next train, just get there a couple of minutes early in case it does. So Metra is the big one. That's the one you're going to find most of the transit hikes around Chicago on, just because it is so big and so vast. But I don't want you to discount the CTA, because there are some really, really cool things you can visit using the CTA. The CTA is more of a day-to-day commuter train, like more of an intercity transit utility, what do they call it? The circulatory system of the city. Pricing is much more straightforward. It costs $2.50 one way. They're less for transfers and all that good stuff, but it's much simpler. Using Ventra, again, you can reload things using the Ventra app on your phone, but another good way to do it is with your Ventra card. I haven't used it in a while. I miss it. But you just kind of tap it on the turnstiles. The big green go will pop up, and then you're on your way to the train. CTA stations usually have a little better signage, so it's a little easier to find where you're going. Every door opens at every train station, so just go in whatever. Watch for your stop in the same way. They'll announce it over the intercom, but you can also watch with your phone if you prefer that. CTA has also got the advantage of that nice map above the door, assuming no one's stolen it. But I like that map. You can bring your bike and your e-scooter on CTA. There are some rules. You can't do it during rush hour. They don't like it if the doors that fold and not the ones that roll open. I go through all of this in my book. You can check it out there. But yes, you absolutely should bring your bike on CTA. I'm a big fan. Same with pets. It turns out you can bring your dog or your cat on CTA, but they, again, need to fit in a carrier or on your lap. And as I bet smoking, eating, and drinking are prohibited on all CTA vehicles. And if I was that guy, you would have read that in that voice. So sorry, I'm not. We all miss him. The South Shoreline is the third big transit system in the book. And the South Shoreline is pretty cool. Honestly, I'm a fan. It really is most useful for the Indiana dunes. Otherwise, it kind of operates a lot like Metra. Cost is based on distance. You want to buy your tickets with the South Shore app. It departs from Millennium Station. Really very much like Metra. There is Wi-Fi available, though, so that's one amenity it has over the CTA or Metra. If you are bringing your kids, they like it best if you bring a collapsible stroller, and they are fussier about bringing your bike. Fussy is the word for it. They say yes, but it's certain trains on certain days at certain times and certain stations. So just look it up to see if it works for your trip if you want to try and take your bike to the Indiana dunes. All right, now that we're all prepared, where do you want to go? Where should you go hiking? I'm going to recommend you start at LaBeau Woods. This place is cool because it is entirely within the city limits. I met this guy there. He was handsome and terrifying. And honestly, I did not run into him on purpose. Like, it turned a corner, it was like, a gigantic deer. It's off the Forest Glen Metra stop. That's on the UP Northwest line. It connects with the North Branch Trail, which you can ride all the way up to Ravinia, guys. So you could ride your bike all the way up to Ravinia, enjoy some sips and some wine, maybe take in a light music, and then take Metra back, because if you've been drinking wine, you don't want to bike 20 miles. But it's LaBeau Woods is a really magnificent place. It's very accessible. It's got wide paved paths, winding paved trails throughout that you can take, bikes, strollers, anything with wheels, very accessible. Then it's also got these just magnificent game trails or foot trails. It's heavily wooded, tons of deer. I've seen minks there. It gets downright swampy in the summertime. Like, it's insane with flowers in the springtime, and it is practically vibrating when the birds are migrating. So LaBeau Woods, go there. You won't be disappointed. Thatcher Woods is a little further west. It's over at the River Forest Metra stop. It is technically not part of the Des Plaines River Trail, but it is immediately south of it. So I'm confused why it's not. Excuse me. There are it's actually really kind of a bonkers place. It's got these massive river bluffs, like massive river bluffs, and 250 species of wildlife. There is the Hal Tyrrell Trailside Museum there, near the entrance where I outline in the book. So it's boom, right there. And the Trailside Museum is cool. They keep captive raptors there. So if you ever wanted to get up close and personal with a hawk that could otherwise not live outside of a captive space, that is a cool place to see it. Big, scary birds. Love it. But beyond that is also a tremendously good spot for birding, just because it's got this massive river basin. It has a tendency to flood, so watch out for that. But if you go, you'll probably see tons and tons of kingfishers and egrets. So great spot for birding because it floods. So another place I like, and this one's just like probably one of my absolute favorite hiking spots around Chicago. It's Veterans Acres and Stearns Woods and Fen. 2 places, 1 name. It's about half a mile from the Crystal Lake Metra. So it's a really, really easy to get to, super easy to get to. There's this really fantastic nature center that greets you when you first get there. And that's especially cool if you have kids, and you want to take them there. There are 2 main bodies of water there. This really beautiful pond outside the nature center, and then the fen. What's a fen? A fen is kind of like a bog, but it's alkaline. What? That's bonkers. It also has some drainage where a bog does not. This means that different kind of plants can grow there, including native Illinois orchids. Native Illinois orchids. That's a thing we've got. Do it. Go there. The Wingate Prairie is actually an Illinois nature preserve, and I can absolutely see why. That place is stunning, just insane. It has these massive, beautiful boulders that were placed there by the glaciers 10,000 years ago. No one ever farmed this particular spot of prairie, so it is exactly like it should be. It's gorgeous. In between the two, between Veterans Acres and Stearns Woods and Fen, you can connect up with the Prairie Trail Bike Path, and that is a 56-mile-long bike path. So you can go so far. This place is just bonkers with wildlife. I'm a big fan of Veterans Acres and Stearns Woods and Fen. What else? Another place you might want to visit is the Fort Sheridan Nature Preserve. This one's rad. I'm a big fan. It's got tons of cool sculptures. It's really close to the train station, so it's super easy to get to. And the really cool sculptures, they kind of line the space to the trailhead, so super duper. It's lake adjacent, so it can get windy. Watch out, but it's right there. This is actually the only place in Lake County that you can access Lake Michigan for free, so keep that one in your pocket. And it has been pretty much unchanged. The French explorers paddled through here in the 19th century. They came past the spot that would eventually become Fort Sheridan Nature Preserve, declared it too beautiful to mess with, and it just stayed that way. It just did. We never messed this spot up. I'm very proud of us. What will you find there? You'll find prairies. You'll find a 70-foot high bluff. That's really tall. Savannas, ravines, the lakefront, not beaches. Don't go beach coming, but if you want to pick up a bunch of neat rocks, this is a good place to do it. And then this is a little one. If you're looking for something green right now, this moment, you want to go to the Chicago Botanic Garden. It's still warming up. We're still seeing all the little lilies are just coming. But if you are absolutely itchy to see something green, something beautiful right now, the Chicago Botanic Garden will have you covered. They are right near the Braeside Metro station, so you could even ride them all the way back now. Come on home via the North Branch Trail. They have an excellent winter or early spring right now hiking spot because in part, it is great for families and people of all levels of physical ability. So you want to take grandma somewhere, but her knees don't work so well anymore? This is a great spot for her. It has 27 display gardens, 9 islands, and 4 separate natural areas. Home gardeners can learn a ton. They they let nothing go to waste there. So if you garden at home and you want to learn how to compost, all that good stuff, come on. And there is even a tram. So again, if you're with somebody who might not want to walk very long, but does want to get out into nature, this is the spot to do it. And I had to give the Botanic Garden photo credit because this is the only one that isn't mine. So that's where we are. Thank you for coming. See you on the trail. That's my bike. I'm happy to take any questions if Erica would come back. There she is.
Hey, thanks so much, Lindsay. I seriously learned a ton. I learned about I'm taking notes. I learned about raptors at Thatcher Woods. I didn't know what a fen was, so that's helpful. And now know that I need to bring a bungee cord if I ever want to strap my bike to the Metra, as the conductors would want me to. So this was really helpful. So I really appreciate it. And I can't imagine there's not more to learn in your book. So we're really excited that you had come on to share a little bit of a preview. I'm going to ask a couple of questions. We got a couple of questions. One person said, so cool about the native Illinois orchids. Do you know of what time of year is best to see them blooming?
I would go in the summer, but you'll have to look really, really closely. Native Illinois orchids are, and this isn't the only spot they grow. There, I can think of bogs and fens. If you want to see native Illinois orchids, go find what few bogs we have left. And when you go looking for orchids in those bogs and those fens, the park staff will not help you. They won't. Their logic is sound, because if they start telling people where they are, we won't have them. They'll just,
yeah.
But they do have a tendency to just kind of appear to grow somewhere very near the trail. So my advice for that is to go in during the spring and the summer, and then just keep a keen eye out.
Cool. Okay. And we've got another one. Personally, for you, what's the farthest you've traveled on the transit to get to a trail?
Farthest I ever traveled. I can tell you the furthest out you can go is all the way to Elburn, which is a town I learned about while putting this book together. The village of Elburn is a lovely place. They've got their own really, really beautiful little forested area in the middle of a pastoral farm scene. And I think they are something like, they're close to about 50 miles west of the Loop. So that's about the furthest one, I think.
Got it. Cool. And then just one question for me, any other kind of, what's like one of your favorite memories, like kind of traveling by transit and train to get to the trail here in Chicago? Any kind of fun story you can share for us?
I don't have very many fun transit stories that aren't related to going to work, so I'm sorry. But I can tell you that part of the reason that's the best answer is that I hate driving. I love my car. My car is rad. I think that's clear. But driving is so stressful. It stresses me out. It does. I hate sitting in traffic. I hate it. I am the kind of person who gets so wound up when you start wasting my time. So I'm pretty sure the Edens is out to get me. So yeah, I just hate driving.
Yeah, the most fun part is whizzing by all the cars and traffic, right? And then being like, I'm about to go to the trail.
You mean the best part about sliding down the blue line?
Yeah, exactly. On your way to O'Hare. Cool. Well, I want to come back to Q&A. There's a couple more questions that I want to save, but I think that our friend Adrian can probably also comment on some thoughts. So if we can have Adrian join us, he's going to tell us a little bit about his app that actually helps you plan your trails, trail to transit, hiking. So thanks for joining, Adrian. Why don't you just give us a quick intro about yourself and about TOTAGO and why people should use it? And I think we can also check out the site because you wanted to give a little bit of a preview of what that looks like.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks. Thanks for having me on. My name's Adrian. I'm the founder of TOTAGO. It stands for Turn Off the App, Go Outside, which is actually deliberately ironic because, yeah, of course we are an app, but really the app is all about helping people find nature and outdoor activities near them. And many people that use our app are in cities and use us to find trails, to do hiking, bicycling, water activities as well. And yeah, so I'll show a quick demo, but one of the reasons, yeah, Lindsay and I are both here. We actually partnered, and our app includes information from like content creators like Lindsay. So she put in a bunch of awesome places all over the Chicago area that can be accessed by transit, as you've obviously heard about. And yeah, basically our app kind of relies on, local experts to put in the information about, these amazing places. So the app acts as it has a trip planning tool that can make it easy to just kind of streamline the logistics of, planning a trip, particularly with transit. And then also having like a map when you're out there, and then the ability to download the map for offline access. So I'll just, and yeah, basically we started in Seattle, and we also have information in Oregon and California. I'm based in Detroit, and obviously we exist in Michigan, and Chicago is one of the more recent places we've expanded to with the help of Lindsay and her amazing content. And yeah, so I'll just show a quick kind of demo of the information, and that basically includes some of the things that are in her book, as well as other things she wasn't able to fit into the book.
Cool. And I do want to just remind people too, before you start, so that people can chat on the live stream on our website, mappyhour.org, if you have any other questions, if you're on the live stream, and then also our Facebook stream. So leave questions as Adrian's sharing this demo, and we can jump into them right away after.
Awesome. So yeah, I'm just gonna keep this quick, but yeah, you can check it out at TOTAGO, TOTAGO.co, and I think there's some links on the Mappy Hour pages. And there's also a mobile app, but you can use it on your computer as well as your phone. So just maybe if I'm wanting to just kind of filter things to find a trail that's maybe 5 miles. Lindsay was talking about the Lincoln Preserve. I've been to Chicago a few times, but definitely don't know the trails very well. But yeah, I think Fort Sheridan. So click around, see things on the map near wherever you might live. And yeah, I'll show just kind of using the trip planner for Fort Sheridan. So there's kind of some high-level information, how many miles of trail, and links to kind of view more information, oftentimes descriptions as well, but then kind of the kind of official resource for that area. And if I want to plan a trip with transit, I can just click that. And and since I'm in Detroit, I probably wouldn't want to start from my location. That would take a while to get here probably. But maybe I'll just say, the loop. And then going maybe on Saturday, and you can change kind of the date or the time that you might want to depart. And then, it will kind of automatically assume that you're just like taking the amount of time to maybe hike that distance of trail. But if you kind of know, maybe I'll, want to spend 4 hours, you can kind of adjust that. But kind of, setting kind of the minimum time you might want to spend there. And then the trip planner is going to basically show you what that trip kind of looks like getting there on a bus as well as back. And then, of course, as Lindsay was mentioning, sometimes you might spend like longer on the trail, and you want to make sure that you're not hopefully waiting too long for the return train to get back. So there's kind of an ability to kind of load return routes, and this information is coming essentially from the information Google collects. So it's all kind of up-to-date schedule information from the train services. Oh, it looks like this one he doesn't. So yeah, here's kind of the trip planner, and I guess in some cases maybe it's also nice to have the the Metra app, so exactly what service the trip planner from the official agency I think would be helpful, because sometimes having it all in one place perhaps doesn't always there's not always the same the official most up-to-date information for Metra, I think specifically.
Cool. This seems like such a great alternative to like Google. I feel like I'd want Lindsay's expertise too. Did you know about this app before you joined or like started on your book, or like how was the main ways you were finding about the trail system and the trails?
Oh, I went the hard path. I went very difficult route. This did not exist at the time that I was putting the book together.
Yeah, seems like a really streamlined option for hiking.
Yeah.
And matching that up with transit.
Mhm.
That's really awesome. Cool. Thanks so much, Adrian. This is awesome. Again, you can find this at totago.co for anyone watching if you're interested in getting on this app versus trying to navigate your way through Google. Adrian, can you tell us about how folks can add extra trails to this app if they're not seeing it online? Or maybe Lindsay has some secret spots she wants to share too.
Yeah,
all my secrets are available.
Yeah, so contributing, I think we have a feature that one of the things we try to do is make sure that like all the information, there's other apps out there that kind of primarily have like crowdsourced information from everywhere that maybe varies in quality. We always try to work with like to make sure just that there's a high quality content that's like accurate and reflective of like official trails and things. So one of the ways we kind of input, I mean, people can just hit us up. There's an email on our website. But also, if you want to if you went to a place or maybe you went to a park and you want to like contribute information or talk about your experience there, you can submit like a report or like a logging your activity. So people use this. See here. So yeah. So if I wanted to kind of comment on your experience, that can kind of help make sure that people know what it was like to be on that trail recently. So you can use the log activity and kind of that you went basically information about that, and then that would come up in for other people that are in that area, kind of seeing what that particular trail was like, and be able to see kind of a photo that someone took there.
Got it. Cool. I kind of want to jump back into like a general. Oh, sorry. Can you hear us?
I thought I was. Yeah, I think I might have been not. Maybe my screen wasn't moving because I might have been on the wrong screen.
Okay, cool. We're gonna jump. I just wanted to jump into some more questions for both of you to chime in as hiking experts here in Chicago in the Midwest. So, one other question we got, and feel free to jump in, either of you, about family hiking. Sometimes it might be hard to load a whole family in the car and get to the trail. Maybe it's just easier to take the Metra or something, but what is your experience, or have you talked with families about traveling, or from your own experience could imagine which trails and transit options are best for families?
I can tell you that I don't have kids, so I'm not going to stand here and pretend that I know what that's like. But I have carried a lot of stuff on the train, and that's something similar. Plus, some of those people were drunk, which I think is, there's some overlap. No, I'm kidding. If you can manage to get all your kids on the train, great. Congratulations, do it. I have a spot I want to recommend very much for families, and it is Itasca, of all places. Itasca has done such a good job. I mean this really. Connecting the Itasca Metro station to the Springbrook Nature Center. The path from the train station to the nature center entirely separated from the road. No cars, completely separate. And when you get there to the Springbrook Nature Center, there's just it's really designed for families. It's not a big place for big adventure hikers, but if I had a stroller or I had a couple of toddlers and I just wanted to let them run loose, that would be a good place for it. Plus there's a pool, and a splash pad. So even if it's a big summer day, Itasca is a great place for families, especially with little kids. Now, let's say you don't have little kids, you got like medium kids. Itasca is still a good option, because right after that, half a mile away from that is what is it called? Songbird Slough Nature Preserve. So that's just a great big proper hiking spot, honestly. And the slough is a wonderful fishing spot. So Itasca, great for families.
Nice. Adrian, do you have anything to add, or?
Yeah, family. I guess one thing I would add is I think one of the types of getting out knowing a lot about the trails in Chicago, just kind of in general, I think finding trails that are like the kind of multi-use trails that are paved, often are really good for families. And I think families tend to like going to those kind of trails because you kind of have a guarantee that it's going to be paved. It's going to be easy for your kids to walk. They're not going to trip on stuff, or if you have a stroller, you can use that. So yeah, I think, and then a lot of these trails, like the Lakefront Trail, in Chicago is one I'm familiar with that seems pretty ideal. But there is a lot, I think, others that are paved that kind of can have like a really nice natural experience, but still be like very accessible when it comes to, safely moving around as a family.
Mm-hmm. Cool. That makes a lot of sense. And then one other question, what about wintertime and trains here in the city? Because a lot of the season, not necessarily season, it takes over all of our seasons, I feel like, here in Chicago in the Midwest, winter. So should we be aware of like obviously train delays, but do the trains like shut down in any capacity, or how are the trains working in the winter, and can we rely on them to get to transit in the winter? Because I've personally hiked in the winter in Chicago, and I think it's kind of one of the best times to, if it's snowy and there's not many people joining you on the trail.
I'm with you. And I have to say, most of the hiking that I did while putting this book together happened in winter. Like I was just hiking on the train in winter. So just, my approach to winter lately has just kind of been to pretend it doesn't exist, and like pluses and minuses on that approach. It works by and large. But no, Metra is great, and CTA is great. Like Chicago just knows how to keep the trains running.
Yeah.
They might light the tracks on fire to do that, but they will do that.
Got it.
I'm at that level.
Cool. Good to know. Well, I do want to ask again, Lindsay, where do people go to get your book if they're interested?
The best place is to buy it directly from the publisher, Belt Publishing. They are committed to life in the Midwest, and I think they really get what makes the Midwest so great. But if you're not going to do that, go to your local bookseller, your local one, the one in your town, near where you are.
Awesome. And Adrian, it was the website we pointed people to. Is there somewhere else they should go to get the app, or?
No, yeah, they can search TOTAGO in the App Store or in Google Play, or you can find it on the website.
Cool. And I think we are documenting these links in the chat from today's website live stream at mappyhour.org, and also on the Facebook page. So check it out there too. I just want to open the floor in the last minute here for any departing thoughts. We're departing this Mappy Hour train station to the trail. What do you guys have to say to our followers? Anything?
The sound of a tree falling in the woods.
I guess that's our sign to try it.
Yeah,
cool.
I guess one thing I would just say is like, don't, just go for it and kind of have fun with even the transportation side of it, even if, you're intimidated by kind of that process. I think, don't be afraid to ask like, other people, if you're having trouble figuring out what's going on in the system, just kind of get out there and have fun with the whole experience, even though it might be a little daunting at first, and don't be afraid to basically ask people that might know that particular line if you've never been on it, for kind of, guidance if you're, not sure what to do or anything like that.
Cool. Awesome. Well, we'll leave it at that. I am so thankful for you both for joining today. It's been super exciting to just learn more options about traveling by transit. So again, check out Lindsay's book, download TOTAGO to find your trail beta through the app. And also, final plug to just check us out on Instagram. We really are having a pretty cool giveaway with the North Face and these boots that you can take on your trail hike from the transit. So basically, we just really want you to share your experiences on the trail, and maybe you do take the transit to get there, but basically geotag, because I think a lot of people in Chicago want to learn from each other about where they're hiking. And so let's spread the love with trail information by geotagging here in the city. So thanks again to you both. We'll see you next time on Mappy Hour. Our next event that I'm hosting is next week on the 24th. We're talking to Anastasia Allison, who's an entrepreneur and creator of Kula Cloth, which is a literal rag that you use when you pee in the woods. So that's going to be a really interesting conversation. And she also takes her violin to the top of a mountain when she hikes to play music. So if that's any indication of how exciting this conversation is going to be next week, I am very stoked myself. So without further ado, thank you again. We'll let you get on with your night. And thank you so much for tuning in to Mappy Hour Chicago.